Stop. Don't touch your phone, because the first thing you do this morning decides who you'll be all day. Most people wake up and before their feet even hit the floor, hand their mind to strangers, headlines, notifications, other people's drama, other people's victories. And in under a minute, they're already tense behind and irritated, without anything even happening yet. Marcus Aurelius would call that
Most
defeat
people
quiet,
wake in
invisible
surrender.
defeat, not because a phone is evil, but because reaction is expensive. The moment you start your day reacting, you've surrendered your inner core. Here's the Stoic rule. Your morning is a gate. Whatever walks in first rearranges your thoughts, your mood, your choices. And if the first voice you hear is the world's, then the world becomes your master. Imagine Marcus at dawn, an emperor with war reports, waiting betrayal in the Senate, a sick city outside the palace walls. He could have started the same way you do, checking, scrolling, bracing for impact. But he didn't. He did something almost shocking in its simplicity. Before he faced the empire, he faced his own mind. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the one morning move Stoics never make, the reason it ruins your day, and the 3-minute ritual Marcus used to take his mind back before the world could take it from him. Part 1, story setup. Marcus's morning picture. Rome before sunrise, when the air is cold enough to sting your lungs, and the palace is awake before the city, because power never sleeps and neither do problems. A messenger arrives with wax-sealed reports. The border is unstable, a general demands reinforcements, a senator is suspected of betrayal, and somewhere in the streets, sickness spreads while crowds begin to stir, and at the center of it all stands Marcus Aurelius. Now imagine how easy it would be, how natural to start his morning. The way most people start theirs today, in reaction mode, eyes open and the mind instantly scanning for danger and urgency, chasing fires before you've even stood up. The same pattern we repeat on a smaller scale when we wake up and reach for our phones. Here's a number that should hit like a slap most US. Adults, about 85%, check their phone within 10 minutes of waking. And globally, the typical internet user spends around 6 hours and 40 minutes online per day, while social media alone averages about 2 hours and 23 minutes, which means many people begin the day inside other people's priorities and then wonder why they feel anxious before breakfast. But Marcus had a different ritual. Not because he lived in peace, he didn't, but because he refused to let chaos enter his mind first. So before meetings, before commands, before the weight of the empire, he did something almost shockingly quiet. He wrote to himself, not for an audience, not for applause, but for alignment, not to escape reality, but to meet it with a steady mind. Now reset with me. Take one slow breath in, hold for a beat, and exhale gently, and say it with me. I will not begin my day as a reaction, because Marcus understood a brutal truth. You can't control what knocks on your door, but you can control who you allow into your mind first. And he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Urgency tried to invade him every morning. And if urgency leads you, you don't lead your life. You chase it. So think of the palace like your lock screen, where every notification is a messenger, and every headline is a senator demanding attention, and every complaint is a crowd outside your walls. If Marcus had opened his day by letting them all speak first, he would have spent his life being pulled like a rope in 10 directions. But instead, he chose the first voice, his own. Seneca warned that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And morning imagination is a wild animal, half awake, and easily provoked. And the moment you feed it fear, it multiplies fear. So try this 10-second Stoic exercise right now. Fix your gaze on a single point and say quietly, I am here, I am responsible for my response, and feel your mind settle back into your hands. Then see the scene clearly. Marcus closes the report not because he's ignoring it, but because he's choosing order. He writes a private instruction, be patient with fools, be firm in duty, be honest in thought, and only then does he stand to face the day. Because the Stoics were never against information, they were against information arriving before intention. And in the next part, I'll show you the exact mistakes Stoics never make in the first minutes after waking, why it quietly destroys your focus, mood, and decision-making before the day even starts, and what to do instead. So stay with me. Part 2. The never do this explained core idea. What is the mistake? Let's make it uncomfortably precise. It's not checking your phone, because the phone is just a doorway, and the real mistake is starting your day in reaction mode, letting the outside world choose the first thought you think, because the first thought becomes the first emotion. The first emotion becomes the first behavior, and the first behavior becomes the tone of your entire day. So reset with me right now. Take one slow inhale, take one slow exhale, and say it with me. I choose the first thought, and say it again. I choose the first thought because in the first minutes after waking, your mind is soft and suggestible, like wet cement, and whatever steps on it first leaves a footprint that lasts for hours, which means if your morning begins with noise, your thoughts become noisy. If it begins with comparison, you feel behind before you've even begun. And if it begins with outrage, your nervous system stays armed all day. Marcus Aurelius would say you've surrendered the inner citadel before the battle even starts, and not with a dramatic collapse, but with a quiet handover where a notification becomes a command, a headline becomes a mood, and a stranger's opinion becomes a verdict on your worth. And this isn't just poetic, it's measurable, because a widely reported habit pattern says about 85% of U.S. adults check their phone within 10 minutes of waking, meaning for most people, the first voice they hear in the morning isn't their own, it's the world's. And if you zoom out even further, the typical internet user spends around 6 hours and 40 minutes online per day, while social media alone averages about 2 hours and 23 minutes daily, which means many people spend a second life in reaction and then wonder why they feel anxious before breakfast. Now reset again. Breathe in and out and say it with me. My attention is my life, because that is the Stoic core. Attention is power. Where your attention goes, your life follows, and if you don't direct it, someone else will. Whether it's an algorithm designed to trigger you a coworker's urgency or a stranger's outrage packaged as breaking news. And Epictetus warned us exactly how the trap works when he said it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. So if you begin your day with a flood of things, you begin your day with hijacked judgments, and mornings matter. Not because mornings are magical, but because mornings are vulnerable. Here's the shocking part. You don't even need hours on your phone to lose control, because it's not only the total time, it's the frequency, the constant switching, the constant checking, the constant micro jerks of attention. And many summaries put the average at roughly 58 phone checks per day, which trains a brain to crave novelty and struggle with stillness. So focus feels painful and silence feels empty. And once your brain expects interruption, deep work starts to feel like deprivation. Add to that the way interruptions steal time after they happen, because even when you stop checking, you don't instantly return to full focus. Your mind keeps echoing the last stimulus, so starting the morning with rapid-fire inputs isn't catching up. It's training your mind to fracture. And a fractured mind doesn't become wise, it becomes reactive. Now I want a 45-second reset right here in the middle, because this is where most people lose retention and drift. So do this with me. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, relax your brow, and ask out loud. Is this urgent, or is it just loud? And ask it again. Urgent or just loud, because most of what attacks you in the morning is loud, not urgent. It feels like a fire, but it's often just noise with a siren. Let me make this real with a tiny story. A man wakes up and checks his phone just for a second, and first he sees an email with a sharp tone and his chest tightens. Then he sees a headline about something frightening and his breathing turns shallow. Then he sees someone else's highlight reel and his confidence drops, and before his feet touch the floor, he's already negotiating with the world for permission to feel okay. And that is reaction mode in its purest form, outsourcing your emotional authority, so your day becomes a courtroom and the internet becomes the judge. Now contrast that with Marcus Aurelius, who wakes up to war reports, political betrayal, disease, and public pressure, yet writes to himself first. Not because he's ignoring reality, but because he's choosing the lens through which he will meet reality. And he reminds himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Which isn't a quote to decorate a wall. It's a rule to protect your morning, because Stoics weren't anti-information, they were anti-invasion. They didn't hate the world, they refused to let the world enter first. So here is your practical challenge. And it's so simple, it will feel almost insulting, but it works for the first 10 minutes after waking. No outside voices, no headlines, no inbox, no social feed, no arguments, no doom scrolling. Just you, your breath, and your intention. And if 10 minutes feels impossible, start with 3. Because the point isn't deprivation, the point is sovereignty. It's proving to yourself that you can be the one who begins your day. Now do a mini commitment, reset with me. Say it with me. 3 minutes, then I decide, and say it again. 3 minutes, then I decide, because once you close the gate, the question becomes, what do you do inside the fortress? And that's where the Stoic ritual begins step by step. So you don't just avoid reaction, you replace it with command. And in part 3, I'll give you the exact 3-minute routine. The pause, the 2 lists, premeditatio, malorum, and 1 virtuous action. The same structure that helped Marcus stand steady while the world shook. So if you're ready to stop waking up defeated like this video, so it reaches someone who needs calm more than content, subscribe for the full practice and comment. I choose the first thought because next we stop talking and start training. Part 3, the Stoic morning ritual. Here's what Marcus would do and what you can do tomorrow without turning your morning into a performance, without the complicated routines, without the 5 a.m. Bragging, just 3 minutes that quietly change the direction of your entire day. So reset with me right now. Take 1 slow inhale, take 1 slow exhale, and say it with me. 3 minutes, then I lead, and say it again. 3 minutes, then I lead. Because this is not about motivation, it's about command. Step 1 is the pause, and it's only 20 seconds, but it's the moment you stop being dragged by the day. Before you touch your phone, sit up, plant your feet, and take 1 breath, slow enough that you can feel it. Then ask 1 question that cuts through everything. Is my mind mine yet? And if the answer is no, that isn't failure, that's awareness. Because Stoicism begins the moment you notice you've been pulled. Now reset for a beat, shoulders down, jaw, unclenched, and say it with me. My mind is mine, because if it isn't, nothing else matters. Step 2 is the 2 lists, and this takes 60 seconds. Open a note or grab a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle and on the left, right. Within my control, and on the right, right. Outside my control, then move fast and keep it simple. Within my control, my effort, my honesty, my discipline, my response. Outside my control, other people's moods, outcomes, the past, the algorithm, and the weather of the world. And as you write, feel what's happening, your mind stops wrestling the ocean and starts steering the boat, because this is Stoicism in 1 breath. Focus where your power actually exists. Reset with me right here and say it. Control the controllable, and again, control the controllable. Because that phrase is how you stop wasting your life on fantasies of control. Step 3 is premeditatio malorum, and this is where Stoics look fearless. But the truth is, they are prepared, not fearless. For 60 seconds, you imagine briefly and clearly something going wrong today. Maybe a delay that ruins your plan, maybe criticism that hits your ego, maybe bad news you didn't want, maybe a conversation that turns sharp, maybe a task that collapses, and then you don't spiral. You decide, you say, if it happens, I will meet it with virtue. And that sentence matters because it turns fear into readiness. It tells your nervous system, we've been here before. We know who we are. Seneca warned, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And doom scrolling is imagination with gasoline, but premeditatio is imagination with discipline. Now reset again, breathe in, breathe out, and say it with me. Ready, not rattled, and feel the difference between a mind that's bracing and a mind that's prepared. Step 4 is 1 virtuous action. And this is where the ritual becomes real, because Stoicism is not a philosophy you admire. It's a way you act. Ask 1 question. What would a wise, disciplined person do first? And then choose 1 action that proves your character today, not 10 actions, not a perfect schedule. 1 action, start the hard task for 5 minutes. Send the apology you've been avoiding. Train your body for 10 minutes. Write 1 honest paragraph. Or do the 1 piece of work you keep delaying, small, clear, done. And when you choose it, don't negotiate with your feelings, because Marcus didn't worship productivity. He worshiped character, and he reminded himself, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, so let this be your proof, not your plan. Now I want to lock in momentum with a quick dopamine reset, because your brain loves a clean win after you choose your action whisper. This is my first win, and then immediately begin it for 60 seconds, just 1 minute, because starting is the hard part. And once you start, you've already separated yourself from 90% of people who only consume. And here's a real example if today you have a test, a deadline, or a stressful conversation. Reaction mode says check everything so you feel safe. But Stoic mode says earn safety through action. Begin with your first virtuous move and step into the world from strength. Now reset one more time with me, hand on chest breath, slow and say it. I act first, then I consume, and say it again. I act first, then I consume. Because information without intention is invasion, but information after intention is tool. And here's the bridge that keeps you watching. The ritual is powerful. But the real transformation happens when you pair it with one morning question that locks your identity into place. The question Marcus used to turn chaos into clarity. And in part 4, I'll give you that question. I'll show you how to answer it in one word and how that one word can change the way you handle pressure for the rest of your life. So if you're following this, like the video so it reaches someone who wakes up anxious, subscribe for the next Stoic practice and comment. 3 minutes, then I lead, because next we move from routine to identity, and that's where the inner citadel becomes unbreakable. Part 4, a mini story. Payoff, emotional, memorable. Imagine Marcus Aurelius at dawn one last time, but now you can actually see what most people miss, because the battlefield isn't outside the palace walls, it's inside the mind. Outside Rome demands 1,000 reactions, war reports, political games, sickness in the streets, public anger, and inside Marcus chooses one response. And that single choice is the difference between a person who lives by accident and a person who lives by principle. So reset with me right now. Take a slow breath in, take a slow breath out, and say it with me. One response, not 1,000 reactions, and say it again. One response, not 1,000 reactions, because if you remember nothing else from this video, remember that. Most people wake up and ask what happened overnight, and without realizing it, they turn their identity into a news feed, updated by strangers, shaped by headlines, pushed by notifications. But a Stoic wakes up and asks a different question. The question that locks the inner citadel into place. What kind of person will I be today? And that question isn't motivational, it's strategic, because identity directs behavior. Behavior becomes habit, and habit becomes life. So if you don't choose who you are early, the day will choose it for you. Here's the modern shock that makes this urgent one. University of Michigan linked report highlighted that teens can receive around 240 app notifications per day on average. And even if you're not a teen, the environment is the same: constant pulling, constant bait, constant noise. So the first minutes of your day are either your training ground or your surrender. Reset with me, shoulders down, jaw relaxed, and say it. My mind is mine because the world is loud. And a mind without a gate becomes a marketplace. Marcus wasn't perfect, and that's the point, because Stoicism isn't about never feeling anger or fear. It's about not being ruled by them. And that's why Marcus wrote to himself, because he needed structure the same way you do. And one of his most famous reminders cuts through the internet's chaos like a blade. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, which is the opposite of the modern attention economy. Because the internet profits when your thoughts are scattered, reactive, and hungry. It sells you urgency. It sells you outrage. It sells you comparison, because a calm person is hard to control. And Marcus knew that calm is not softness. Calm is power. Now let me turn this into a scene you'll remember. Imagine a young officer stepping into Marcus's chamber, voice tight, saying, Caesar, the city is restless, the Senate is divided, the generals disagree, and Marcus could explode. He could blame, he could panic. But instead he looks at the man, breath steady, and says, then we will do what virtue demands. And that sentence is a weapon, because it doesn't depend on mood. It doesn't depend on applause. It depends on principle. And principle is what stays when everything else moves. Now here is your practical takeaway. The morning question, 10 seconds, no drama, but it changes everything before you touch your phone, before you let the world name your problems. Ask, what would it look like to be wise today? And then answer with one word, just one: patient, disciplined, honest, brave, kind, focused, calm. And now reset with me and say it. One word, one aim, and say it again. One word, one aim, because that one word becomes your filter, your lens, your compass. Then you immediately prove it with one virtuous action, because confidence is not a feeling you wait for. It's evidence you create. And when you repeat that loop word, action proof day after day, your mind stops begging the world for stability and starts producing stability from within. Here's the emotional anchor I want you to keep. You are not behind because you didn't check updates. You are ahead because you checked yourself. And once you feel that, you'll never start the morning the same way again. Now, we close this the Stoic way, simple and strong. If this helped you, like this video, so it reaches someone who wakes up already anxious. Subscribe for more Stoic practices built for real life, not aesthetics, and share it with one person who starts every day exhausted, because you might be the reason they reclaim their mornings. And I want you to comment this with me. My mind is mine, and then add your one word for tomorrow. Patient, disciplined, brave. Whatever you choose, make it yours. Because the day you reclaim the first 3 minutes, you reclaim the first hour. And when you reclaim the first hour, you reclaim the day. And when you reclaim enough days, you reclaim your life. So tomorrow morning, don't give your mind away. Hold the gate, choose the first thought, and live like Marcus did, from the inside out. Tomorrow morning, try it once, just once, 3 minutes before the world touches your mind. And if you want more Stoic practices built for real life, not quotes, not aesthetics, but actions, subscribe to Making Life Better so you don't miss the next episode. If this hit you, like it so it reaches someone who's waking up in reaction mode right now. And share it with a friend who starts every day already exhausted. Write in the comments, "My mind is mine." And tell me which step you'll do tomorrow morning. Because the day you reclaim your morning is the day you begin to reclaim your life.